Welcome to the Pit Village podcast. Now, today I want to talk about something I don't know about, which has become my forte at the moment. But it's the craze. It's all the craze this year. We've got the blockchain, we've got the cryptos, we've got the NFTs. Now, before we get into NFTs and cryptos, what we need to understand is what a blockchain is. So a blockchain is a technology that goes back to 1991, and it was introduced to create digital timestamps for documents, so if they were changed, you would be able to see it each time. So it's not possible to tamper with the data. It's a way to store data. It's a distributed ledger, so it's difficult to change. Rather than just being the data in the cell that anybody can go in there and change, it's a blockchain. It's a chain of blocks. So on a blockchain, you've got the data, you've got a hash, and you've got the previous hash. So the data are the details within the block. So that could be, let's take a cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. The details within that would be the sender, the receiver, the transfer date, the amount of coins transferred. So that, for every transaction, you're creating a new block within the chain. And that has got to be verified by the peer-to-peer network. So if you're to send somebody else a Bitcoin, the security comes in because it takes 10 minutes to calculate that change on that one particular block. You've got to do something called proof of work. So it changes ownership, let's say, from me to somebody else. So if I'm trying to tamper with that, that's only going to change it on that one block, where it's distributed to everybody in the peer-to-peer network. So therefore, everybody gets a copy of the transaction. So if I change the transaction, let's say, between me and you, it's not going to change on the blockchain because everybody else in the network is not going to be verified. So to hack and change let's say, a Bitcoin ownership, you would have to take control of 51% of the peer-to-peer network and change the same block on all their platforms at the same time. But also it's got the proof of work, which takes 10 minutes to complete. So anybody trying to hack into a blockchain, there's a lot more security there. So let's say a block's created. That will then be distributed to the entire network. They're called nodes on the blockchain. It's people, peer-to-peer networks, rather than just being in a centralized database in one storage facility. So let's say you've got a database and I go in there and I change it. I change your customer names. I change how much they paid. I delete a couple of logs. How can you get that back? Whereas on a blockchain, that is impossible because I can't change it without the consensus being that this has been changed. So if I try and hack it and change it on one, say I try and change it on your server, but it's a peer-to-peer network and it's on a million different people's servers. So therefore it's not going to change on their server. So it does add a layer of security. This is with blockchains, and a cryptocurrency is based on the blockchain. So the blockchain is a application outside of cryptos. So we all know about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and what's been happening over the last year. But over the last month or couple of months, there's been a big craze and everybody's talking about the NFTs. So what do we think about NFTs here in the Pit Village? Not a lot, really. So let's have a go. To change a blockchain, that requires a proof of work on each block on every chain. So to take control of that, you would have to take control of 51% of the network. It's too much work to do to hack these systems on the blockchain. The NFTs tokens come into play first off in 2011. So it were based on Bitcoin, but that did not have a way to support a token system. They had to build around it, and ultimately it failed. A more successful Bitcoin-based tokenized system, Counterparty, was created in 2014. Had a little bit of success with that, but then in 2017, in the boom of 2017 with the cryptos, Ethereum became popular and that had a token system built in. So the token system were already built into the Ethereum blockchain. So if you to buy something with Ethereum, it's a lot easier to own one of these NFTs, a non-fungible token. Now, it's a digital asset, but to know what a non-fungible token is, you got to know what the fungible part of the thing means, I guess. So a fungible is like a currency. It's mutually interchangeable. Let's say I've got 5 £1 coins and you've got a £5 note. We both know that they're worth the same. Let's swap because I want a note, you want the coins. It's a mutually interchangeable thing. But if you've got a car or you've got a piece of artwork or real estate, real life, they are not fungible things. I cannot trade that for a specific amount at any specific time. The value of it's going to go up. So an NFT, a non-fungible token online, is different to the cryptocurrency because like a real currency, a cryptocurrency can be traded for a specific amount. 1 Bitcoin is worth X amount of dollars. Or 1 Bitcoin is, if I've got 0.1 Bitcoin and another 0.7 Bitcoin, that's going to be 0.8 Bitcoins. But with a non-fungible token, that is not the case because it proves ownership of a digital asset. So Ethereum is one of the main platforms in which is used for these networks, these marketplaces, because again, it's got a token system built into the currency. Ethereum is a cryptocurrency. They do say there's some scalability issues there. So it is very early at the moment, this market, the NFTs. Over the next 10 years, we're going to see the boom and the bust and like we did with 1999 and 2000, early noughties with the dot-com boom. Everybody went bust. There were a couple of highly successful companies that come out of that. Apple, Amazon, Google, all that. But there were thousands that just went bankrupt. And the same will be for these cryptos and these digital assets. It's in a massive bubble at the moment. These pieces of art. There's things out there selling for crazy amounts. There were a digital piece of art sold in March this month for 70 million. 70 million for a collection of digital artworks as an NFT, which is it's a digital certificate of ownership that's based on a blockchain. So he owns this. It's basically a JPEG, but he's got it's basically a picture, but he owns the digital rights to it, which sounds crazy to most people. But why would somebody buy the Mona Lisa? Why would somebody buy an expensive pair of shoes? Why would somebody buy anything other than necessities? Because the value is based in the scarcity. So the NFT marketplace is trying to create digital scarcity. That's how it's branded from way back. So you're trying to create digital scarcity for artists. But there's a lot of business uses for this as well. So I watched a Mark Cuban interview, a couple, and obviously there's a lot of people speaking about NFTs at the moment. So I'm trying to do a little bit of research in between running a business and posting one of these every bloody day. If I'd have had a little bit more time, I'd have been able to delve into this more. But Mark Cuban, again, compares it to the 1995 internet where he opened thebroadcast.com, started broadcasting essentially, and he'd say to people would say to him, why wouldn't I just turn on the radio? Of course, he compares that to now with streaming and Netflix and YouTube and how it's a daily part of his lives. So in 25 years, we've gone from being a very abstract idea, oh, what do you mean I'm going to broadcast something on the internet? Why would I do that? To it being an everyday part of his life. So most people won't see this coming until it's too late. Because again, in the adaption of technology, there is always a curve. You've got your innovators who were the first to come to market with new products, risk-orientated, more educated, prosperous, Elon Musk's and Jeff Bezos of the world. You've got your early adapters, which are younger, more educated people that tend to be less prosperous than that, but more community leaders are the early adopters. So the early adopters of the cryptos and this technology will be people who knew about this technology in 2011, not people who are picking it up now. You got your early majority, which has just come to a close, I think. We're getting onto the late majority at the moment. People who are getting into cryptos in the last year, you're in the late majority of people. You're not in the early adapters. Don't give yourselves too much credit. So like a lot of us were in the late majority. We're just cottoning on to this now when it's been happening for the last 10 years and nobody's knew about it until it were in the news. So let's get real. So you've got your innovators, early adapters, your early majority, which are more conservative. They're open to new ideas. They're active in the community and they can influence the neighbours. Now your late majority are your less educated older people. They're fairly conservative. They're less socially active. They may not have the connections to get to know this stuff and be at the forefront of the technology. And that's where a lot of us are. And then you've got your laggards, who are your very conservative people. And obviously, they've got the least capital. Maybe older people don't want to get involved. I mean, how long did it take people to get on social media? You had your early adapters who did well and they built a brand on there and they were able to sell themselves on there, particularly in the sort of celebrity world. And then, you know, you had your laggards and people who come onto this stuff late. Let's look at podcasting. Podcasting at the moment, you know, I'm not in the early majority. I'm probably in the late majority of people, but in a business sense, I may be in the early adapters. This is only a 10-year old market. The first podcasts were like 2008, something like that. So, I mean, again, I'm not in the innovators or the early adapters within this space. I'm just not, because I'm not doing it 10 years ago. I'm doing it in 2021 when it's easy, when it's accessible, when more people are doing it. I'm in maybe the early or late majority as it comes to this instance. So I don't want to give myself too much credit either. But there's a lot of business applications that's going to be used with the blockchain. And what I'm trying to demonstrate there is a lot of people aren't going to pick it up now. A lot of people will pick it up now, which are in the early or late majority of people that's coming onto this stuff. And then you'll have your laggards, people who aren't going to even, you know, be interested in this. Let's say we're in the early majority now and we're just coming up to that, particularly in the crypto market. But this NFT, it is very new and there's a lot of business uses for it. It's not just going to be for artists, but it's a decentralized finance. It's a peer-to-peer lending. It's the advantage over the banks. Fees are eliminated. They say your margin is my profit. So if I can lend through a digital asset, through owning an NFT that is worth so much, and I can lend against that in bitcoins for a 1% flat fee and pay them back over time, why would I not do that against spending on a credit card? And this is Mark Cuban's points, going back to Mark Cuban's points, talking about the NBA Top Shot. They sold 300 million in the last 6 months. So they're reducing the friction to the market because they're actually not trading in cryptos, they're trading in dollars. So you buy their NFTs of, let's say, LeBron James dunking a basketball. You can buy that moment. They're selling it as moments in NBA. That's what they're selling, NBA moments. Own an NBA moment. And the asking price for some of the top things on there at the moment is £210,000. So, I mean, we are in a bubble, of course, but the business applications for NFTs, non-fungible tokens, or the blockchain in particular, think about it from a healthcare standpoint. We'll create an NFT for every person, that database then, every single time you go to the doctors, they add it to the NFT. It's then got a date that it were added, all the details, it cannot be changed. It's a very secure network. So you're not going to one doctor and going to another and he's saying, oh, well, I can't access the notes. Well, it's on my NFT, mate. Whoa, wait a minute. It's on the blockchain. So in healthcare, it's coming again. COVID certifications, proving that sort of stuff. Voting in politics. People are saying it's going to be used for, like, let's say, voting a president in. But let's fast forward in 20 years. May this be used as a form of furthering democracy in the fact that we all are authenticated on a blockchain network. We can all vote against certain things in society and what we'd like to do. I mean, that might be a nightmare because leaving the average person to decide the fate of the society may indeed lead to devastation. So let me take that back. But particularly for voting systems and electoral systems and all that, they're going to be using it for that. Insurance, Mark Cuban brought up this point of, let's say you're in America in particular, they've got insurance for the healthcare and they go to the healthcare provider, but they've got some dodgy agreement with your insurance company not to let you have this medicine because it costs too much. But if you use the blockchain technology and NFTs, you can certify people as validators and have external validators come in who have got no association with any of you to validate that within your healthcare and your insurance. Again, book sales. Say I sell somebody a book and then they go and resell it. If I sell that as an NFT, if they resell it, I'm going to get a cut on that because, again, if I'm an artist and I produce something and it's got a composer, it's got a writer, it's got a singer, we cut out the middleman, screw the publisher, sell it as an NFT. If it ever again gets resold, let's say I release an NFT, it's a digital album. Kings of Leon are doing this at the moment. They're releasing an NFT album and art. Now, let's say they only release 1,000 and everybody buys these NFTs and they sell them for $100. $100, sell 1,000, they make 100,000, but then they're exclusive. So again, you're creating digital scarcity. So if somebody wants to buy into that and they want that album, they're going to have to pay whatever I want to sell it for. So I might want $300 for it. But then Kings of Leon will be compensated on the back of that resale. So they may get 20% or whatever it may be. Again, in the case of the artist Beeble, sold his piece of artwork at Christie's auction for $70 million this month in March. In December, he made $3.5 million in one day selling digital artworks as NFTs. Sold his first piece for $66,000 online in October. The person who bought that resold it for $6.6 million in March, and he got some money off the back of that resale. Obviously, the guy who bought his first piece is quids in as well, so that's interesting. But again, we are in a bubble at the moment within this. But it is a way to cut out the middleman. It is a way for the composer and the producer and the writer and the artist to all get paid fairly, particularly on resales. So you're cutting out the middleman. Again, decentralized finance, the peer-to-peer lending is faster, more effective with a smart contract. So let's say I own a podcast. I do, the Pit Village podcast. So I could sell an NFT for the Pit Village pod. There's only 100 of them. People get exclusive membership onto a platform that allows them to go log into a voting system that votes for the next piece of content that I'm going to do and gives them exclusive, as Patreon are now. And then they can resell that token in the future. So this is how people are using it. Again, back to Logan Paul, who's just sold £5 million worth of NFTs. Jack Dorsey, who's just sold the first tweet for 2.5. Well, there's a bid on it for 2.5 million at the moment. Thinking about it from a business standpoint even more so, tickets to get into places, completely replacing like your ticket masters and disrupting that. Disrupting the music industry, disrupting the book sales and physical book ownership. Imagine if all your Audible collection were NFTs, you could resell them as NFTs, ownership of this audio for this particular book. Maybe it works for that. But particularly for like books, if I want to resell a book that I've read, and why could I not resell that and the composer gets more? So just these small things, but when you're talking about exclusivity, right, I am only going to release 100 pieces of this digital art. It's a digital certificate to say that you own it. You know, although it sounds like it's nothing. Again, going back to this, why do we buy expensive clothes and shoes? Why do we not buy anything other than necessities? So we are in a bubble at the moment. There is a CryptoPunks that's selling for $7 million just to own an original ownership of a JPEG file. There's the crypto kitties and the digital scarcity that they're creating. And of course, it's very interesting, but where does this stand for you? We're in a bubble right now, but we still need to be aware of how this is going to eventually feed into our everyday lives. Just like the internet in 1995, which everybody thought were a craze and a hype, this is going to evolve. And it will have business applications that we currently cannot see. Somebody's going to come into the market and they're going to utilize this technology and they're going to move forward in ways that are creating value that we've never seen before. Again, back to Mark Cuban, talking about if he does a conference and he wants to release that conference and sell that as a digital NFT, why can he not do that? Gary Vaynerchuk says that NFTs, you'll be able to purchase access to your favourite people. So this is what it's about. It's about artists. It's about cutting out the middleman, delivering it straight to the market, getting that resale value. It's very interesting. It's very rudimentary. It's going to evolve. The business applications will be vast. And we can't see it yet, but this will affect our everyday lives. We are in a bubble, just like the dot-com boom. We'll have a bust. And many of these companies that exist now may not exist in the future. Your kitties and your crypto punks and all this stuff. Who knows? But there will be the emergence of your Amazons and your Googles and your Facebooks and the evolution of this, just as there was the evolution of the internet. So I'm sorry that I cannot speak more on this. Again, I'm trying to do one of these a day as well as run a business. So we'll explore this more in the future as it becomes more prevalent in society, I'm sure. We'll all get to know what these NFTs are all about. But for now, let's just say we can avoid it. Let's not buy this art. Let's not buy this stuff. Let's watch other people lose some money or make the money and just stay out of it. Because at the end of the day, unless it can serve you, you're just wasting your time. Unless you're going to utilize this in business, you're wasting your time. So, can your business benefit from it? Will it disrupt your business and the industry that you're in? Do you need to know about this? Because over the next 10 years, there's going to be a lot of noise when it comes to NFTs and how this translates into the real world. Does it mix with AR and augmented reality? Do we buy virtual? They're selling virtual worlds online for millions of pounds. Lands, virtual land in virtual video games, virtual furniture for £70,000. They say it's going to be big virtual clothing and accessories. Is this going to merge with AR, augmented reality, Google Glasses, where you buy virtual things in a virtual world, but people have got glasses on and they can actually see it? Does that become the new norm? Who knows? But these NFTs and these cryptos and these blockchains, these technologies, they're here to stay and we need to accept it. And we can't be the laggards. We need to be in the early majority so we know about this stuff and we can stay ahead of the game, particularly in business. So thanks a lot for your time. It's a Pit Village podcast. NFTs, cryptos, blockchains. Oh, Christ. I apologise that I'm not a genius and I couldn't explain this to you better. But again, thanks for listening and I'll see you again tomorrow for the Marathon March, one podcast a day, sponsored by Prospect27, pay monthly websites. Again, pitvillagepodcast.co.uk.